Women's Rugby Pod World Cup 2025 post pool stages now, and a friend of the pod, legend of Welsh Rugby, Rachel Taylor. Tails is here. Tails, how are you? You're smiling. That's good.
Yeah, I'm very well. It's been an exhausting couple of weeks, isn't it, with the World Cup already? But it's been, obviously amazing so far to see the energy it's created. Just got to try and find the positives when you're a Welsh fan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've been doing a bit of broadcast and that kind of stuff. Not enough for my liking. And you've been doing some podding with us and what have you. But overall, joyous is the word that sort of keeps flying into my mind. I've run out of beer at Brighton. That's it's not good, is it? But it tells its own story. It's like ticket touts apparently selling fake tickets. Again, it's not right, and we don't want people to do it, but it kind of tells its story.
Yeah, I think it's just been, whether it's record breaking attendances after record breaking attendances, or like the people and the stories that are coming out of it. The countries that are producing some amazing role models, and then the quality of the rugby. I think there's been some real quality games over the last couple of weeks as well. Yeah, a few big score lines which no one likes, but that happens at a World Cup. But the ones that we've really got, some really high competition out of have been great to watch. So yeah, I think it's amazing. And as it builds up now into the quarters, it's even more exciting.
Yeah, and that sort of fiesta rugby where penalties are getting cheered and big tackles, are sort of the highlight of the sort of crowds afternoon and whatever. We now sort of move sort of slightly more off the pitch into on the pitch, which suits us here the WRP. But look, obviously, we got you on today just to sort of pick the bones out of Wales and their World Cup. Three World Cup losses in the pool stage. Of course, let's remind you 38-8 loss to Scotland in round one. Then at 42-0 against Canada. Just make sure I got the scores right. And then, of course, Fiji 28-25. Let's work back from last weekend. Certainly had their opportunities, and um, one probably puts a little a black mark is some of the officiating and that kind of stuff. And there was a few bones of contention potentially kick shots down that kind of stuff the weekend. But Wales shouldn't be relying on that kind of stuff, should they?
No, no. And I think you're right in that there were some positives in terms of getting some points on the board, being able to finish some of the opportunities they were creating. But overall, it was a really windy day down in Exeter. Like I don't think like any of the unless you were there, you probably didn't feel the strength of the wind. And I think from a game management point of view, both halves were quite disappointing in how we approached that game. And yeah, a few decisions go against you. Fiji do what Fiji do and bring you into the crazy. And unfortunately, we met them there, and they stuck to their DNA and their process, and it suited them far better than it suited us. So massively, obviously disappointing in terms of result. Disappointing for the players. You would have loved for them to have finished on a high. I think any tournament that you're in, regardless of where you sit, that last one sort of lingers with you. Which would be really disappointing for them because it's not where they want to be at the moment.
No, I mean, talk about the tactics. Well, uh, anyone who's ever been around Premiership rugby and PWR rugby, oh, Sean Lynn, will know that Sandy Park is windy and it swirls around. It's just off the motorway there and all the rest of it. And it's ridiculously windy. Johan Cunningham, who formerly the Welsh boss and now the Fiji boss, um, they kicked everything in that first half. And then second half, have I got those halves right? Yeah, I have. They're running everything from virtually their own try line. So tactically, again, I just thought Fiji were probably a little bit smarter. And that goes against everything that Fiji is about, the kicking of the ball. They want a ball in hand, they want to have their floating game, and putting those structures in is clearly what Johan's been doing. But tactically, Fiji got it right. And again, I was struggling to see kind of to understand Wales's tactics at times.
Yeah, I think the big one for me is like I don't know if Fiji really intended to kick and use the wind. I think what they did is just stuck to their game plan. They stuck to what they knew worked for them. And when they had the opportunity to kick, they did. If they had the opportunity to run, they'd still run. And I don't think it didn't really shake them or alter their plans. And I think whether, like you said, obviously like Wales will have been down there the day before, team run, etc. And I don't know whether the power of the wind almost changed the focus on the day. But with Lakey George and someone of the caliber of kicking that she has and the ability to hit 52s week in, week out in the Premiership, it did baffle me a little bit that we didn't use it more. Plus, knowing then that we'd go to set piece, which you'd like to think would be a stronger skill set for Wales than it would be for Fiji. We just didn't do it. And I just thought that was a really odd decision, and I thought Fiji just didn't seem rattled by it, and we did, which again, when it comes back to the game management side, is probably the disappointing bit of that game.
Why can't Wales seem to translate club form into international form? And that's been for some time. Is it players around them? Is it decision making? Where do you put that down to? Because on paper, yeah, and you and I were there, and we spoke about that Scotland game, which we'll get into in a moment or two. But even the bench looks strong, and you're thinking, okay, do you know what? Wales's bench probably even look a little bit stronger than Scotland. On paper, it's a good side.
Yeah, I think that's the million-dollar question at the moment. Why aren't the players who are being able to be unlocked in terms of their potential shining in the PWR, but when they come into a Welsh environment, it just doesn't work? And I think it's really difficult because Wales have put new players in this World Cup and they've done well, and that's been really good to see. I think some of the more experienced players that you'd probably expect a bit more from haven't, and I think that's difficult. And that could be a form, that could be returning from injury. There's probably lots of little parts of that, but I think like the cohesion bit of it is probably a bit worrying for me, and then the identity that we have as a team. I think you look at a New Zealand and words like chemistry are thrown about, and I look at Wales and I was like, do we have chemistry? I don't think we do. And then I suppose if you flip that to Scotland, Scotland seem to have an identity and a group ethos of uniting in really difficult times, and I think that's like been amazing for them to in all their off pitch stuff that they've gone through. It's united them. It's strengthened the bond that they have as a group, and I don't think that's happened in Wales, and that's probably a little bit, which is sort of the hard part for us to talk about because we don't understand why. And I think you're right. Players that perform in the PWR didn't perform in the World Cup. For me, it comes down to that the chemistry that we have as a team and our identity in terms of um, playing style.
Oh, there's so much to talk about, and unpick what you just said. But you come into an environment where we're kind of just on the cusp, aren't we? Whether it's football or rugby in Wales, but it's pretty much a national sport, and professional for a few years now, and so players and young women and girls have seen these players, and yes, I can go and do that. So there's a culture. I was talking to Sarah Hearney just earlier this week. Well, you know, we don't get annoyed if we don't win, and it's not you must win, da da da. But we don't want to win because that's what it means to be in the black shirt. And that's a kind of culture for many years, and putting that black shirt on in Wales. You, there should be a kind of culture of rugby anyway, and we're talking about international rugby. It's purely about winning. So some of that culture bit is almost done already, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and no, I think there is. I think we've always sort of sat more comfortable with like the underdog tag. If we're a smaller nation, we have less players available. Um, we'll have that underdog sort of plucky fight style of rugby, and that's fine. But then you've got to be a team that's difficult to beat if you want to be that nuggety team. And at the moment, we are not a team that's difficult to beat at all. Like we don't represent what we think we do off pitch. And then in terms of playing identity, I think previously we've probably been a team that's relied on a set piece or certainly like a line out. Um, and we've converted those opportunities and generally that's kept us in the game. I think for years we haven't really ignited the backline potential that we have. It's just never really seemed to have sort of caught fire. And I think at the moment we're neither. We're not a we're not a team of electric backs, and we're not a set piece team anymore. So I just think at the moment it's around figuring out who we are and what type of team we want to be. And if it's a team that's hard to beat, then our defense has to be better. If it's a set piece team, then we have to have a better set piece stats than we've had at this World Cup. So I think the passion stuff, yes, and that's been a massive success in my opinion from the World Cup. The fan base is amazing in Wales. Like the way they've supported players like George Evans, the way that they've stood by the team every time, the people you see turn out in the daffodil heads, brilliant. We know that's there. I think that like from an off pitch fan point of view, that's great, but we have to deliver on the pitch. Otherwise, like we are in that cusp of like we could lose them if we don't get that right. Like people want to see us winning as well.
Okay, I'm going to get back to the Scotland game, kind of the build up and all the rest of that. So therefore, Belinda Moore, the head of women's rugby at the WRU, said that this World Cup has not been a failure. Um, with your comments there, with the fan base and the daffodil heads, and absolutely, George Evans, it wasn't just Wales fans, was it? It was the rugby community, which is received some abuse the way that she looks when she plays the game of rugby, and everybody rallied around, and the amount of pink bows and all the rest of it was exceptional across the weekend. Loads in Brighton as well. So that's really really good. But you're going to have to win a few games to keep that support. Just on the comments about it being a failure, 3 losses. I know Fiji are now kind of up to 13th, I think, and Wales 12th. But you should be beating teams that are below you, and that Scotland game is winnable.
Yeah, and I disagree. Like I disagree with her. I do think it is a failure when you look at the pool. I don't think it was necessarily a pool of death. I think it was a team that we would have looked at and thought, yes, we can beat Fiji. And then I think it was a team in Canada that we probably would have gone, all right, they're probably going to make quarters. So where do we sit? But the way the fixtures were aligned to know that we had Scotland first, like for me, that should have been our World Cup final. And I think we do have the players that are capable of doing that. And we play them week in, not week in, like year in, year out, right? But the players know each other week in, week out from the Premiership. So they're not a million miles apart from each other. And I think that's what was probably so disappointing about that Scotland game is the way they approached it and their mindset and their intent to play that game was like there was nothing before and nothing after it. And we very much played it like it was part of our development, which I don't think we needed to do. I think we could have won that game. And I think that'll be the bit that probably hurts a lot of people when they look back, obviously when the dust settles and people review it. I think that'll be the one that stings a little bit because for me, Scotland nailed that in terms of approach and we were way off.
They were absolutely exceptional. It was very very clear mentally they're in completely the right space. And look, you've said about them in this conversation about other things going on, and Emma Wassell and all the rest of it over the last few years. They're a very galvanised team, and they're for me at the moment being able to sort of harness that emotion and put it in the right place for playing rugby. But clearly, everything was about that first game. It was exactly the same 3 years ago. Scotland Wales in the pool stage was the game of the tournament. Kira Bevan kicks the last minute penalty. Wales go through to the knockout stages. That wasn't difficult to prepare for that game in the right way. What? Why wasn't it done?
I don't know. And
You're
it's,
not privy to it. I get that. You're not privy to
yeah,
everything. So.
I think that's what's frustrating because as a group of, like whether that's ex-players, supporters, family, like we know the capability that that team has got. And I think that's what's hard then to see it not brought to life. And it's not just that one from 3 years ago. Like every time we play them in the Six Nations, it's been pretty close. It's been a
Nip and tuck,
um,
yeah.
Yeah, and but also like on a on a few probably moments of momentum swings, that's where the game's decided. I think the disappointing bit is it was nowhere near. Like we were miles away from them, from like you said, whether that was like meeting them like mentally or just our execution. Like the Scottish backline that day, like passes were out in front, they were hitting the ball at speed, they were just clinical. They were on a different level to where we were, and it's hard because I know obviously like Sean Lynn coming in and we're trying to create a new identity, and I get all that, but we knew it was going to be Scotland from a long from the run in, and it's just a bit disappointing to have that approach into it. And I'm not privy, obviously, to the conversations, and I don't know what was sort of agreed with Sean Lynn when he came in. Is it going to be used as a development tool? I really struggle with that because international rugby for me is about performance, and it's probably a little bit of a sorry sight if our governing body want to use a World Cup as a development tool, because that probably just underpins that our pathway is not good enough right now, and our domestic game isn't good enough right now, which I think we know, but it's just frustrating that we have to do it at the highest level.
Yeah, I'm conscious of your time, so only a couple more questions, if I may. Um, Sean Lynn, absolutely smashing fella. I remember speaking to him after one of the PWR title wins, and just lived and breathed it across the Heartbeat and moved up through the ranks there. Really, really smashing fella on a personal level. And I know one pundit said, "Oh, what an incredible back catalogue of coaching that he has in the club game." How different is the international game to the club game? World Cup's a bit different because you are getting camps and therefore you're getting your players all the time. But in the build up, it's only a short amount of time. And if you flip that to speaking to Alana Thomas this week, who's the high performance women's manager at Fiji, Young Cunningham came in March, didn't really get on the island until May, and he's able to come through a World Cup with a win. So there aren't any rocks to hide behind, are there?
No, not really. I think like it's really difficult, isn't it? I think when Yeoman in, I've listened to some of the interviews. He talks about him being adaptable or adapting to their culture, and I think that's really important part of that. They have an identity that he needed to mold himself into, but also support with a little bit of exactly what you said, international rugby experience around set piece, high performance, getting wins and where to get wins. I think Sean Lynn has an incredible backlog of experience in the PWR, and to get the three-peat is insane with the
Oh, for
quality
sure.
of and the quality of players that he has and how he's developed them and how he uses them is brilliant. I think the difficult bit is developing players now is actually quite hard to do even in the PWR, because you only really get a cut period to do that, to introduce new players, to see who can transfer to the league. Once it's league, it's all about winning, and he knows that, and that's what he's done really well. I think it's difficult if his expectation is to develop players in an international environment, because then you have to make some allowances in your performance for development, which sort of is like the yin and the yang of it. And I don't know if the two marry up for me. And I think it'll be really difficult for him to figure out what that looks like. I don't know where he sits on it, but like I said, I'm sure when he reflects back, he'll be a little bit frustrated at that Scotland game. I think he's the right man for the job in bringing the team through. I just think it is a different environment. It's a much, I don't want to say it's more high pressured than obviously what he's done before, but for me, international rugby is all about winning. So how he has those conversations with the WRU and what their expectations are and what his are, I think will be fascinating over the next probably 12, 14 months.
Yeah, look, and to create an environment where players, that unbelievable squad the Gloucester Hartby had, is all credit to him because he creates an environment that the players want to go to. And even when you're sitting behind, you're going to go there to be a bench player potentially. You still want to go. So we know he can create the environment. So let's sort of turn it round a little bit more to a bit more of a positive. It's not it's not unusual. I remember having a conversation many years ago with a certain Warren Gatland who said, you know, I actually have to sort of physically coach and physically develop players when they come into Wales setup because they're just in the regions, it's just not good enough. So it is possible, and that was a time when Wales were pretty successful with a men's team. But look, turn to the future. There's a couple of youngsters showed really well in this World Cup. We know the pathways have improved dramatically, and some ex players in there, El Snowsill um, and Sean Lillycrap, two people who I rate very highly, and they would have learned a huge amount. So there are shoots, aren't there? Come on, let's have another smile from you.
Yeah, I think there are, and I think sometimes I spoke to a fan actually in Exeter after, and was like, she was like, "At least you've hit rock bottom. It's only up from here." And I was like, "Wow."
Oh,
It was still a little raw at that point, but
too
I
soon.
think there is some sense in that. Like we have been shown now where we are. It's very clear. Sean has that opportunity to develop a new identity for us, which, like you said, he is one of the best at club level in creating that environment, and we have definitely needed that um, environment to get better off pitch. So we know that. I just think we've got those players coming through. Now there's an opportunity to see where this whole professionalisation of the game in Wales sits, where Brython Thunder, Gwalior Lightning sit within that. Can we get the better players in there? Can they be playing at the right intensity? Because I think that's one thing that really lacked. We're clearly not training at the right intensity to play when you looked at Scotland compared to us. So if we can get that week in, week out, those players have a really good chance to come through. Whether it'd be really interesting, wouldn't it, to see like in 4 years' time, the next World Cup, where are those players? Are they key players? Are they in roles of leadership? Because they have been identified early. And I think it's very much a team that he wants to build around that group now moving forward. And it'll be interesting to see who stays, who wants to retire. Every time there's a big tournament, a few people might hang up their boots, and maybe that would be the fresh start that some of the Wales players need, some of the Wales team need. And also, like, I think he needs to build his own coaching staff. Like, everything that he's had has kind of been inherited, and it'll be interesting to see what that looks like and where he wants to take the team. Probably be based around that identity piece as well for him. So yeah, look, I think there is excitement obviously around what we've got the potential to do. We always do have it, and I think a lot of us have put faith in Sean Lynn because, like you said, he is a really good guy and he lives it and he breathes it, and we know that he will live it and breathe it. And this will wound him, and I imagine it to make him work even harder if that's even possible. But I think he will be completely devoted to it, and that's kind of what we've been craving um, as a group. So I think that'll really help as well.
Yeah, I think it's really salient points talking about inherited coaches, inherited contracted players. I think there will be a big turnover of players come the Six Nations, but we are looking way ahead. Just gives your predictions before we leave you, Tails. Just gives your predictions for quarterfinals. New Zealand, South Africa.
Oh, I think South Africa have been amazing, amazing stories, amazing fans. Epic that they've made it where they are. But for me, I just think they'll be outpowered against more quality opposition.
England, Scotland.
Can't wait to see this one. England have looked a little rattled at times. Scotland have absolutely nothing to lose. But I expect Scotland. I expect England to win.
And of course, Canada against Australia.
I am excited about that game. I think the
Too.
Australia USA games have been one of the best ones of the tournament so far. Um, I'm really excited by the Australian fly off and what she can do. And I don't think we've really seen Canada get out of gear too just yet. So I'm looking forward to them getting pushed. Expect Canada to win, but I hope Australia give them a run for their money.
I'm probably picking the bunch, France, Ireland.
Yeah, again, like I think that'll be a really quality game. Ireland looked a little bit rattled last weekend. I know the talk is obviously they've got a lot of players out with injury, but I think again it's a bit of a free shot, isn't it? A chance to get underneath France. France again, have they got out of second gear yet? Don't know. These are the games where we really see what people are made of.
Awesome. Can't wait. It's going to be a wicked weekend. Tails, keep the pecker up. Future's bright and all that. Yeah, thank you so much for your thoughts on unpicking Wales. And hopefully we'll catch up later in the tournament. But for today, thank you so much, Rachel Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hammond.